Welcome to Pub in the Desert, where we bring you honest, curious conversations about faith and the human experience. I'm Matthias Miller, here once again with my co host, Kevin David Kridner. I want to recap our three guiding principles before we get started. First, you don't need to be fixed, you need to be known. And we believe that love is knowing and being known. Second, we approach difficult topics with genuine curiosity. We aren't here to win arguments, we're here to understand. And third, we aren't here with preset agendas. We're here to let conversations unfold naturally and follow where authenticity leads us. So pull up a chair, grab a drink, and let's explore what union looks like with God, with others, and with ourselves. So, Kevin, I want to open up this conversation today a little bit around the discussion of like this. There's kind of this intersection of a few ideas, which is around labeling people, around our superpower, and around the dark side of kind of our unique ability. And you were telling the story before we got started, and I've experienced this. We actually kind of experienced this from different directions recently, of individuals with a high attention to detail, and particularly to details that other people miss, and um, and with that, so if you're that kind of person, with that, one of the things that happens is that you end up bringing details to the surface that other people either don't see and might deny, or are uncomfortable for other people and they want to deny them. So
Yeah.
so your gift then creates discomfort in relationship, and then this is my opinion, and we can unpack this and explore it. But then it's very easy when you don't have a solid grounding in relationship for the use of this gift, then it's easy to retreat somewhere for some kind of place of belonging for where to get
Yeah.
that, in which case it can be really useful to label yourself as X, Y, or Z. Um, Give yourself a label so that you have some kind of place of belonging that you can find. But using that to open up our conversation, and curious what your thoughts are.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. It's been a fascinating thing for me for a very long time, both for me personally and for, people I've walked with or for just people I've met, like how important labels are to us as not us, just you and I, but us as human beings. And the question becomes, why are why are the labels so important for us on a fundamental level as human beings? Why are the labels so important?
And it's very it's it's very difficult to, oh goodness, it's very difficult to indict or convict somebody without a good label. So, I mean, one of the classic evangelism tools is, have you ever told a lie? It's said, told a lie. Yes, I have
Mm,
told a lie. Well, if you tell a lie, then what are you? Liar. Okay, so we've just made a good leap from
right.
behavior to identity. All right.
Right.
Well, scripture says that liars will find their place in the lake of fire. Is that a problem? Yes, that's a problem. Okay, great. Well, another logical conclusion. Would you like to say a prayer because you have an identity as a liar? Like, if you, okay, so that's one example. I mean, another example is that, I mean, it's any number of examples, and I think this can be for both good or bad. It's like, um, Jesus was an individual who really resisted people's labels of him. And if you
Mm,
managed to call him one thing, he would show up somewhere else as something else.
yeah.
And and it was really frustrating because the religious leaders would be trying to trap him, and he always found a way out of the trap, and he would always flip the question back and kind of shine the light back on them. And so he was very hard to pin down. But you also have this behavior with manipulators
Mm,
who, unlike Jesus, aren't operating from the premise of truth, but who also manage to spin the story in such a way so that they too can't be exactly labeled. So, all the gaslighting and all of the other things that can happen, it's like Um, I mean, just all of the stuff, and and so on the surface, Jesus and manipulators have a lot in common in which they avoid labels,
Mm,
and as a result of that, it becomes very difficult to pin anything on them.
right.
But underneath the surface is something very different, and I wonder if an exploration of what is going on underneath that can lend insight further into why we as humans both seek and resist labeling.
Mm, wow. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the power is like it brings me back to the psychologist Carl Jung and shadow work. What he talked about shadow work, and his premise was like if you spend all your time trying to kill this thing, hide it, avoid it, justify it, you're just giving it strength. The only way is to come face to face with it and bring it under your control. You can't pretend like you don't have the shadow. Everybody does. Everybody has the wound. Everybody has the longing. And we all have to deal with that. I guess one of the things for me would be the difference between the two is have you dealt with the shadow? And I think one key way of knowing that whether you've dealt with the shadow or not is how open you are and willing to talk about your faults, your failings, your struggles, your how open are you about those things? Because I see one in the manipulator, there is no openness about faults or failings or uh, issues they're dealing with. It's look at me, I'm great. Look at all these things. There's always a justification of who I am. There's always the label.
Did you know that if you want to make a persuasive statement that, well, or if it is, let me just start by saying this, or if it is, it's not done vulnerably and it's done with the intent to further deceive and manipulate. Did you know that if you want to really persuade somebody, that if you can make one, two, three, four damaging admissions before you make a positive statement, that the fact that you made four damaging admissions that are credible and believable make people more likely to believe the statement that you make following that,
All right.
not surprisingly. And so, I mean, I think we also have to talk about a little bit about the faux vulnerability or the faux transparency, where it's like, I mean, there's a million and one ways. Like, the classic job interview. What is your greatest weakness? My greatest weakness is that I work so hard and I'm so intelligent and
Right.
I outwork everybody else. And, my boss has a hard time keeping me busy
Yeah.
because I do so much stuff so fast. Um, and people
Yeah.
like me so much that it makes it really hard for me to go home at the end of the day. Like,
They don't want to let me go home. What a
it's rough when you're
stupid,
popular.
right? What a stupid question to ask, by the way. What are your weaknesses? Have you met a human being? A human being under pressure, especially financial pressure, to get a job. You're going to ask them that question. What chance do you think that you're going to get an honest answer? And if the person actually gave you an honest answer, what chance is that they're getting hired?
Yeah, yeah.
Come on.
What's your greatest weakness? Well, I tend to get into arguments with my boss. I tend to want to do things my own way. Um, I don't know, whatever. Like, there's all the other best worst answers.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, let's just like there's the part of the creating perception of yourself. Okay, we all have a need to paint ourselves in a good light. All of us. But then there's the part of we've been raised in a system that teaches us to always have our best foot forward, to always have this curated image of who we are. Like, look at the social media world. Like, you look at somebody's back when I had a Facebook, it was like there was people that I saw what they were posting, who I knew personally, who I had just talked to minutes before, or hours before, and what they're posting is not even close to what we just talked about. So blessed, not stressed, and all the things. And then, like, we just finished an hour-long conversation about how you can't handle your life.
Well, maybe that conversation was just so effective, Kevin, that finally they were able to truthfully, honestly
Right.
say,
Yes. I'm sure
like,
that's what it was.
I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. Oh, I talked to Kevin. Hey guys, I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed.
I'm sure that's what it was.
Kevin, you really teed that up nicely for a compliment. Man,
Right, right.
next time just tell me you
See the
nailed it.
manipulation and the
Right,
angle.
totally. Totally. Image curation. Caught you red-handed.
So good. Oh man, I went back to work yesterday after having the previous week off, and stumbling through the door in the morning, coffee in hand, and one of my colleagues is like, "How you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know. Give me about an hour, and I'll tell you."
Exactly.
I've had three sips of my coffee, and I'm coming off a week off, and I'm back here, and I don't know quite how I feel about it. Give me a little bit, and I'll let you know. It's just like, man, I guess the bigger point I'm trying to make here is, yes, we curate image. Of course we do.
Right.
Why? Why do we curate image? Why do we create labels for ourselves?
Well, the really blunt answer is that, again, which I despise because it hits too close to home, but the blunt answer is that we don't trust people with ourselves. And maybe in going a step beyond that is that um, maybe that we don't trust that we seek our protection in other people's opinion of us. And that's not to say that we don't need people in our corner with whom we can be completely ourselves and who can be present with us without judgment in the midst of the most horrible situations, which I think we absolutely need that. Um, but there is this question of wherein are we putting our trust for our own safety and protection, and is it in other people or is it in God and I mean it's not I'm not trying to exclude one or the other, like it is that, and it's also, like I said, having people in your corner.
Right,
So the isolation does, I mean, it's this weird feedback loop. Like the more you present an image, the more isolated you get. The more isolated you get, the more you have to protect your image, and the harder it is to the less people around you you have to really be vulnerable with.
right, right. And from my experience, and I'm just saying this is my experience, not extending it beyond that, but the most profound ways I've felt the presence of God is through the presence of another showing his characteristics, whether it was a friend or a spouse or, coworker or that kind of thing. That was the profound experience of, oh wow, this is this is Jesus here with me.
Right.
And that's profound. And yet, if you are not experiencing that with the people around you, that's a profound loneliness,
Right.
almost a catastrophic loneliness.
I've been fascinated by a few things, but fascinated by some of the perspectives that the Orthodox Church, through which it looks at the world, and and one of and also fascinated by other people's fascination with it, which is I'm almost as curious about their fascination with it as I am about it itself. But one of the things that I find intriguing is around this idea that church and Christianity, I've seen expressions of this lived out, attempted to have been lived out, not lived out very well. And I don't pretend to say how well or how poorly they're living it out, but there is this idea that we don't participate in the life of Christ individually. We're not self-seeking a mystical experience for myself. Um,
Mm,
we are experiencing Christ through each other as a body and as a community. The scripture is not something that, you know, um, and I've really wrestled with some of these, wrestled and maybe even felt guilt with some of these um, expectations about what an individual's walk with God, what my walk with God should look like. And and within Western Christianity, there's very much the idea of a personal relationship with God, which means that you should spend time in prayer by yourself and you should spend time reading the scripture by yourself and studying the scripture by yourself and all of these things. And I'm not saying those things are inherently wrong, but it's missing the
mm.
point that this stuff happens. It'd be weird if I would say that's inherently wrong. That would just be really weird. That was a weird statement.
Matthias just said praying and reading your Bible is inherently wrong.
Right.
That's all I heard.
That's all you heard. Like, I'm done. I'm done. Haley, when you're
Bring,
editing, please be careful which clip you grab for TikTok. She's
please
like,
bring that
hey,
one.
I, I found this one clip. It went really viral. Um, was it true?
Oh yeah,
Ah, who
bring
cares?
bring the stake, tie it to him. We're gonna burn him. That's
Exactly.
what we're gonna do.
Light it on fire, man. Light it on fire. Um, I mean, who was the revive? Was it Wesley or something talked about setting yourself on fire and let the world come watch you burn? Anyway, I don't think that's what he meant. The
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure that's not what he meant, but hey,
the
Jesus does say if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. Your left eye causes you to sin, pluck it out. I mean, better to go into heaven maimed, losing a limb than go to hell
this went dark
complete.
real fast.
I felt the
The-
sense that it kind of needed to.
like, Kevin's getting ready to start a new series on Substack. It's going to be mystical horror stories. Um,
Right? Yes.
we will use anxiety, dread, and fear to force you into prayer. Um, the so the point
I'm
being though
biting
that
my tongue.
well, I mean, you don't have to. I mean, I'm biting.
No, it's not for you. It's for my own safety. I'm biting my tongue.
Okay, okay, fine. All right, let me keep talking, guys, to keep Kevin out of trouble. But the point being is that when we understand, back to your point about experiencing the presence of Christ through somebody else, it's like it seems to me like I mean I have a friend of mine from years and years ago, and this made the huge impression on me. He described marriage as being the closest picture to heaven and to hell on earth, and it's like it's almost like I mean it is like relationship with other people amplifies for whatever reason. And so it's easier to mute things by going solo,
Yep.
but you mute the negativity, you mute the noise, but then you also mute the good that you get.
All right.
And um, it's an incredibly vulnerable and helpless place to be as a person.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, it is. It truly is. There's this. need within us to connect with other people, to be known by other people, to be understood by other people. But there's also this need to protect ourselves and to do that in the best way we possibly can. And I personally believe like that's how the ego gets developed over time. What way have I learned to protect myself, whether it's my gifts and talents or my coping mechanism, the mixture of everything together? Like that's what I've learned to do to protect myself, to create this barrier between me and the world. And sometimes the labels, like let's just choose one in particular, depression. Like I suffer from depression or my depression, depending on how close a relationship you have with it. And we've taken it outside the human experience and we've made it a characterized version of that.
Can you explain?
I'll try. The way I see it, the way I've experienced it, both in myself and in others. Now I look back on that experience, what I see is a deep need for rest. A colleague of mine, when he hears depression, he hears deep rest. Like there's some roles
Mm,
that I've been playing, there's some masks I've been wearing for so long that I've become disconnected from who I am as a person, and I've become these characters. And the reality is I need a rest from those characters I've been playing. And yet, the power of that depression hits when I believe I can't take a rest. I have to keep on going. I have to
right.
continue to play these roles. I can't be honest with what I actually think and feel. So we try to look at it as there's this chemical process going on that's wrong, and we try and adjust it with medicine, or we just look like, oh, they're just inherently sad, or whatever the case may be. But the reality is, there's a person standing in front of us who needs deep rest. They've been playing too many characters for too long, disassociating from who they are as a person, and haven't been able to be honest with their thoughts, feelings, and opinions. And it's just that wide has just created this deep sense of sadness.
So I have a friend of mine. This is very it's intriguing. A friend of mine. I'm going to um I'm going to be probably be somewhat vague with some of the stories because it's not fully mine to tell, but and I don't think he'd mind me sharing this, but who spent quite a number of years in marketing and worked with some big names in marketing and um but reached this point of burnout and um along the way it led him out of marketing and led him into led him off in another direction that he ended up being way better suited for him. He used all of the lessons that he had in marketing and applied it over in this other space, and it's been working incredibly well, and it's been incredibly easy, and it's kind of his superpower. And but he's talked very openly about his need to, you know, how important parts work and dealing with trauma and regulating his nervous system and all of those types of things have been for him. Just with the processing of emotion and one of the things that he shared recently at Chase Hughes' video on that talks about the idea that emotions are there's two core premises basically. One that emotions are a state, and that
Hmm.
when they're interrupted, um, they continue to seek resolution. And when you interrupt them, the second idea is when you interrupt them, you build a debt, and you have to pay interest on the debt. And so
Yep.
until the point that you actually allow that emotion to fully to allow yourself to fully experience that emotion, to bring it to closer to peace, to
Right.
whatever it's asking of you, you'll continue paying interest, and that's where you get all of the coping mechanisms. And I'm like, you're way more knowledgeable about this than I am, and could probably fill in a whole bunch of add a whole bunch of color to that. I find it very interesting the way you're framing depression as being. I mean, in a lot of sense, this. I mean, this is also uh, the whole idea of deep rest is also fairly personal to me because I got to the point um, a while back where I wasn't able to sleep well without some basic sleeping aids because I was so far sleep deprived. And
Yeah.
there was a period of time where, I mean, there came this point not too long ago, actually, where I was like, I have to start, like, if I do nothing else in my life, I need to start sleeping. Um,
Yeah.
and there's a million and one reasons why. Like,
Just
the
foundationally, I need to get rest.
foundationally, like, empirically, like, look at health studies. Like, it does
Yeah.
weird stuff to your brain and to your body when you don't sleep. Um,
Hmm.
like, really weird stuff. And um, which raises the question, what would happen to the mental health of America if Americans got on average an hour more sleep a night? But that's a separate question. Um, but it's like there's this, to your point, with depression, deep rest, like literally the physical act of resting is feels like the repayment of a debt
Yeah. Right.
of things I've bypassed in the past, for both for myself. I've seen it through my friend. You talk about the characters that we've been playing, and that's very different than a diagnosis.
Very different.
And so maybe, and I think this has been, I'm kind of, I'm very much verbally processing what you're talking about, but I think one of the helpful shifts for me, especially in the past year, is understanding that emotions are communicators. The past year or two, and and when I'm going through, when I'm experiencing difficult or intense emotions, to, I mean, certainly experience them, but also to then ask the question, what what is the underlying message here? And it's not immediately obvious to me, at least, what that always is. But there is a signal that there's something, there's a distortion somewhere.
Right. Right. Well, there's this idea that I've come across over and over again over the years, and whether it's intended or not, many people will try and get you to pretend like what the thoughts, feelings, and opinions and the circumstances or situation that brought those about will try and get you to pretend that those don't exist, that I can get rid of them, that I can unexist them.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, so for example, um, a child raised in a home where there was a lot of spanking that happened, and that profoundly affected that child, the spanking. Okay. Wrestle with it for the entirety of their lives, and helping people, generally good-natured, desire to help people, will try and get them to fix that emotion or to put that emotion away, bury it, pretend like it doesn't exist, that kind of thing. But the fact is that that experience and the emotions tied to it exist.
Right.
And you can't get them to unexist. You can't take a paintbrush and paint that situation any better. You can't make it pretty because that's the experience. And I think this is what Jung was talking about as far as shadow work goes. We have to go back to those places and we have to understand them. What was happening? What was happening in me? What was happening in the other person? What was happening in the situation? What was the big picture? I have to acknowledge it and understand it and integrate it. This was my experience, and it won't go away because it
Right.
exists. You can't
Right.
take something that exists and cause it to not exist. Not even God does that. What exists, exists. So what am I supposed to do then? If I'm in a place where I'm trying to, I've seen, I've witnessed healing prayer sessions, that kind of stuff, where somebody takes a situation that is very disturbing to them, and then they try and slap a Jesus label on it and make everything better within the situation.
I mean, but isn't this not to pick on any particular model, just picking one as an example? Basic premise of theophostic as an example is go experience your memory and then go bring Jesus in and Jesus makes it all better. Like
Right.
that's admittedly simplistic and it might not be a fair caricature. It might be a caricature, not a fair representation. I don't know, but
Yep.
like, and that's a bit of an ancient
Well,
model, but
in some situations, it is a straw man that you just created, but in other situations, it's pretty accurate. It all depends on the person in the situation.
sure. I mean, and I'm sure it depends on, I mean, there's a myriad of the person experiencing that, the person facilitating it, who trained
Hmm.
them, all of the things.
Right. Yeah. And all the context that goes around it. But if you get, people will do this with therapies like EMDR or any sort of bilateral stimulation, where you bring the memory to your mind and then you stimulate both hemispheres of the brain, whether it's with tapping or you're or tossing a ball back and forth or that kind of thing.
Hmm.
They'll bring, I've seen it, I've experienced it, bring Jesus into the situation. But the best ones do not bring Jesus into the situation to fix it. They bring
Right.
Jesus into the situation for presence in the midst of the situation. They don't
Right.
make that go away.
Right.
They have
Right.
his presence in the midst of it. And so
Right.
those are the powerful things. Like our existence is our existence. Our experience is our experience. Now, our interpretations of those experiences is what can change, but the situation and the circumstances, the objective reality of it does not change. It cannot change. It exists. He doesn't say, like, one day you'll come here to this happy place and then all your memories will be gone. He says your tears will be wiped away and you'll be comforted.
Good observation.
So, if that's what he's going to do for us, then why aren't we doing that for each other now?
You know.
I provide presents for you. I'm with you in it. Now
Okay, so
that's a very dangerous position to be in too. The person, or I wouldn't say dangerous, very vulnerable position. Because most of humanity, when they see somebody in crisis, creates distance, and in the best sense, lobs platitudes towards the
right.
person. God's with you. I'm praying for you, whatever the case may be. Okay. Or in the worst sentence, just completely disconnect. And once you've got your stuff all together, then I'll be back. But the very vulnerable position, and I'm not saying this has to be a career or a position. I'm saying this as a human being. The very vulnerable position is you see somebody in crisis, you step towards them without melding with them, without enmeshing with them. That's really hard without carrying their emotions, but stepping towards them.
Right.
Right. So, what about the label of depression, which has become just astronomical? What if we had people that were willing to step towards them and understand, hey, I get that you need deep rest. You've been playing too many roles for too long and you're exhausted from it. And we need to take some of the masks off that you've been wearing. But I'm here to walk through that process with you.
Right.
Because bottom line, what we're doing as far as on a pharmacological level, and I'm not saying that there is not a use for these things ever, there certainly are for seasons. But what we're saying is you're having these feelings. Here's this pill, which will cause you to not have these feelings anymore. Now, the best practitioners, what they do is say, this is to lift you up so you can work through these things.
Right.
And that's powerful. But on some level, there's going to have to be somebody that is willing to step into that place of vulnerability, step towards that person in crisis and say, I'm here with you. I'm walking with you without getting enmeshed in it.
So what are the, I mean, there's a host of, what are the skill sets that you need to build, or how do you get to that point? Because I mean, first of all, you have to have a high tolerance for unresolved tension, first and foremost.
Hmm.
And that to me seems like a muscle, at least in my experience. That's a muscle that you build.
Yep, without
Um,
a doubt.
I
It's
mean,
resilience. On
it's
a
resilient,
psychological level, it's developing resilience. And the only way you develop resilience physically or on a psychological level is repeated exposure to and lessons learned from the being under tension.
right? So then, and is the ability not to enmesh, is that the same thing?
Oh, yeah.
Same process?
Everybody, I don't care who it is, everybody who steps into that space who wants to help is going to make an enmeshment mistake. Who has a true heart, who wants to help. At a certain point, you step into their framework
Right.
and you have to do that a few times to learn the lessons. And what happens is it can be so painful when you do that that most people have that experience once and they're like, never again. I'm done with that.
Not doing that.
Yeah. And understandably so.
So, so enmeshment, you basically define or describe as buying into their story, or
No, no,
like,
no. Owning their
what do you,
story for them.
okay,
No, you have to understand their story. Yes, of course. And buying
right.
into it, it's really not your position in that place to buy into.
Just being present with their
You're
story.
you're there to listen to it and to ask questions and to provide a presence there. Now, enmeshment would be I buy into their story, I hear this, and I get sucked into their framework.
And I gotta get even. I gotta fix this. I'm with them. We gotta,
I be excuse me, I become God in that situation. It's no longer about the presence of this person reflecting back to God. It becomes you have these issues. I have to help you fix these issues.
okay, what about dealing with, whatever you want to call this, but let's just call it emotional contagion. So
Hmm.
when you have somebody who is so viscerally anxious or rageful or any other type of thing, how do you, is that also, so remaining calm and like, let's just even neurologically grounded in that type of a setting or situation, is that also a matter of resilience?
Yeah.
What is,
So there's this program called Onsite. I think it's in Tennessee, and it's a long-term kind of a therapeutic program. Um, and I heard a number of lectures and went through classes, that kind of share their methodology. And one thing that they teach is super powerful in the midst of this in this conversation. They talk about three circles on the ground. A relationship is three circles. There's my circle, there's your circle, and there's the circle in the middle.
Right.
The only way a healthy relationship happens is if I agree to step into the middle circle and they agree to step into the middle circle. I
Right.
can't jump into their circle. They can't jump into mine. I can't pull them into mine. They can't pull
Right.
me into theirs. There has to be this boundary of we meet in the center circle by choice.
Right.
And that's what over and over again, whether it's, you're talking about enmeshment, or you're talking about any of these things, what we have to recognize is the tendency of human beings is to avoid going into the middle circle,
Right.
pull other people into ours, or jump into theirs. Those are our tendencies as human beings.
So when you're working with somebody who's experiencing or expressing intense emotion, it's easy to again, it's well, I mean, the fundamental temptation then is to either dive into their
Yeah.
circle
Fix
or
it or distance.
fix it or distance.
Yeah.
And the real tension is knowing is dancing in the space in the middle of remaining as present as you can in that scenario
Yeah.
without doing either and without
Right.
putting yourself in undue harm's way, whatever that might look like in the specific
Right.
situation. Is
Right.
that fair?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Totally fair. I have to stand in the tension of yeah, you have to repeat this mantra over and over again. And I want to say this like we're talking about just as human beings. We're not talking about professions, we're not talking about anything other
Right.
than as a human being. I have to get it through my head that I cannot fix them, I can't fix myself, I cannot fix anybody. That is not my job. I can't do it. So if the impulse is to fix something, let's say I'm sitting across from you and you're very upset. There's the tears. There's everything that you clearly are showing emotion. There's a tendency in us as human beings to fix that, to make it better.
Right.
But I can't. I can't. I can be here and I can listen and I can understand and I can know you in that moment about what you're experiencing and prove to you that you're not alone in the midst of it. But I cannot fix it.
Why are you caveating professions in this? Are there professions that you would consider their job is to fix people?
Are you trying to get me in trouble?
I mean, I'm curious. No, I mean, if it
I
happens,
think
that's on
I
you. I
think
mean, no, just kidding.
You're
You're not
right.
dragging me
You're
in your
right.
circle, Kevin.
That's right. Um, well, we have a group of professions called the helping professions, right? Doctors, um, chiropractors, nutritionists, therapists, counselors, spiritual directors. We have these that are solely focused on helping people, right? Okay. Now, when the ego gets involved in those type, and I don't know how it can't, it
Okay.
does in one way or another, it can turn from walking with people to fixing people.
So there's a phrase that kind of made its way through its rounds in some of my circles, or an idea. The idea was basically like here's how the idea started. The idea was basically take the name of any organization or anything and add bureaucracy to it, and it does the opposite. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like let's be honest. Let's not use bureaucracy. Like let's add the ego. So
Yeah.
go take helping and add the ego, and it becomes fixing. Go help. Go take curiosity and add the ego, and it becomes interrogation. Go take pastoring and add the ego and it becomes predatory. Um, and so there really is. I mean, the ego becomes the distortion, it becomes the flipping, it becomes and a lot of the things that we hate about, we love, sorry, I say we love. I think I think it's fair to say that generally we as a culture love to take shots at politics, whichever direction it goes.
Of course.
The sad thing is politics, government and politics is and big pharma and big corporations and all of those things are the most visible external depictions of hyper ego. And
Yeah.
and so it's fun to blast it out there. It's much less comfortable. I mean, with the exception of us two perfect saints who never make any mistakes, which is completely sarcastic. Um, we're not. Anyway, so to look inward and look at the ways that our ego is destroying, this is what I say I'm about, but
Yeah.
is it? And that
Well,
requires a level
that's
of honesty that's painful.
that's the shadow work.
That's the shadow
Is
work.
when it becomes really clear that what I say and what I do are two different things. I can either justify that, I can explain it away, I can do whatever I want with that to make that go away, or I can actually acknowledge and engage with it. Oh,
Right,
wow. Yeah, I'm being inconsistent here.
right,
And I have to acknowledge it, accept it, and integrate the possibility that I have the capability there to
right.
do that. There's this fascinating movie on, I think it's on Netflix currently, and it's called Nuremberg, and it's about the Nuremberg trials after World War II.
Hmm.
Fascinating situation. It talks about a guy named David Kelly, who was a young psychiatrist whose job was to interview these men. And it specifically focuses on his relationship with Hermann Göring, the number two behind Hitler in the Nazi Party, and then after Hitler kills himself, number one, um, and their relationship. And everybody in the world saw them as monsters. And I guess understandably so, given what happened, right?
Right.
But we're very selective about our monsters because go a few thousand miles north from Germany into Russia and look at Stalin's record. He makes Hitler look like a Catholic schoolgirl
Yeah.
as far as death toll goes. Go research it.
Yeah.
But Douglas Kelly spent months and months and months interviewing him face to face, talking to Goring, and he came away with the conclusion that the most disturbing thing is he's not insane. He's a human being, corrupted, of course, with these drives, of course, but this is a human being. And the quote from
Wow.
Solzhenitsyn comes through so clearly. He said this in the Gulag Archipelago. Um, the line between good and evil is not via party or ideology or anything like that. It runs through every human heart. Each of us
Mhm.
has the capacity for great good and great evil. And I believe that is because we have choice. We have free will.
Yeah.
And that's what Kelly pointed out. And he came back to the United States. And his point was you want to portray these guys as the monsters. And their acts were deplorable. Of course they were.
Right.
But he's saying there's men like this in corporate America. And he wrote a book about it, refused to get published. It then eventually got published. But that's his point, and he was essentially on the outside looking in because he was pointing out something very, very true to the human condition, that our capacity for evil and our capacity for good are in all of us. And so we look at it and we go, okay, so I'm sitting here in front of a person and I'm trying to walk with them, and maybe that person wants to be known.
Mm.
Maybe they don't. Maybe they're here for another reason that I don't know. And so the profound point here is we can extend love, the desire to know and be known. And if the other person on the other side of the conversation cannot receive it or doesn't want to be known, it doesn't matter at all. That's the hard reality.
Well, that's a really difficult mental space to live in.
Especially if you're empathetic and you
Right.
truly care about people and you believe that you can do some good.
So, so dovetailing on that, if you are empathetic, there's some level of awareness that this might not be reciprocated, that people do take advantage of. I mean, empathy without street smarts is a really like that's a way
You
to get
get
destroyed.
you'll get wrecked.
You'll get wrecked. And so, but then how do you get street smart without just building walls of self-protection? And
How do
and
you
or like
remain
even without
soft, receptive, open, and still have boundaries?
yeah, and I think and also what with remaining with keeping open, I mean it also just is a really uncomfortable tension to live with, just to say, man,
I don't know, obviously don't know the guy. He was dead long before I was born. David Kelly, the psychiatrist from Nuremberg. But there are parts of his story that make a lot of sense. He saw this clearly. He was empathetic. Now, obviously, he was sitting across from somebody who was not. And then he returned to a society that didn't want to listen to what he had to say. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but Hermann Göring was sentenced to death by hanging for his role in Nazi Germany. The night before he was to go be hanged, he swallowed a cyanide capsule or bit down on it. So he died. He escaped punishment. Here's the fascinating thing. David Kelly, 1958, died from swallowing a cyanide capsule. He killed himself. That's too big a coincidence. And what I'm saying here, I bring that up because there is a toll that we pay for being human. When I talked about the vulnerability of stepping into that space and knowing, there's a toll we pay for that vulnerability.
right.
And so I get the desire to not do that. Or distance or safety. I get that completely. Because if you've experienced that once, stepping into that vulnerable space, wanting to help people, even if you did it incompletely, even if you did it immaturely, and feeling the pain of something like that, I get not wanting to experience that.
Something that struck me about Chase Hughes that as I was listening to this was he talked about this that there is literally a sense in which unprocessed emotions are a form of dying and death.
Yep.
And I think part of the human experience is the fact that we literally cannot fully pay down the debt on what we experience. And especially if, and I think participation, when I think of participation in the suffering of Christ, I wrestle with this so much. Like this is one of the things I've wrestled with continually is like, I do recognize that oftentimes these negative things that we experience, these negative emotions, these difficulties, these whatever it is, sometimes it's our own doing and it's just our refusal to adapt to the world. And that's like, there is a truth in which God wants us to live in peace.
Yeah.
And yes, there's also a price that we pay because of our desire to help other people. There's a price that
Yeah.
we pay by isolating ourselves from not helping other people. So regardless, there is a price. And that price inevitably ends up looking like some form of dying.
Yep.
And the other thing that struck me listening to this is like, what was it like for Jesus? Like maybe I understand. I'm not trying to make a theological statement here or even this is still very much a curious conversation, but
It's a curiosity.
it's a curiosity. Is it possible for somebody like Jesus to walk the earth and have such empathy and care for the people around him and not die at the age of 33? Like, is it possible this is just the inevitable outcome of somebody who cares?
Yeah.
Does it not say that he
There's no
carries?
theological statement there, Matthias. I mean, somebody could take that and turn it into a theological statement because we're great
Right.
at doing that. But
Labeling.
to me, it is just a very human, curious question. Like, what is the price I pay for empathy? What is it? Somebody like Jesus, who is love, who is pure knowing and being known in flesh form,
Mhm.
spending 33 years in the empathy, in the love, in the truth. How long are you for this world that reacts violently to that?
Yeah.
And these are very uncomfortable questions. Somebody sitting here listening to this who hasn't walked through that process of the shadow work, of the valley of the shadow of death, of the death, burial, resurrection, spiritual process is going to reject you totally
Mhm.
because they haven't had that experience.
Right.
Which
Somebody.
brings a
Yeah.
fascinating thing to it. Sorry, of like, did Jesus
Mhm.
have to die? We're asking that conversation, or it gets brought up constantly, especially around Easter.
Sure.
Did Jesus have to die? I think it's such a stupid question. I'll get myself in trouble.
Okay. Let's do it.
Such a stupid question. Whether he had to or he didn't have to. That is such a intellectual tap dance. The
Mhm.
reality is he did. He did. He died. Did he have to? Did he want any of these things? He did. This is what happened. And it's objectively provable, archaeologically, uh, primary source wise. Like this is reality. So did he have to? I'm not concerned with that question. He did.
Yeah.
Did. And why? Why did he die? If you look at the gospel accounts, his love, his empathy, who he was as a person, pissed a lot of people off. It also drew so many people to him,
which just made them
pissed
angrier.
them off more.
Exactly.
Look at that riptide. As a human being, just take it out of any sphere other than as a human being, where you have these people who are so drawn to you, crowds and crowds and crowds. And then you have these people that are so against you.
Right.
Just as a human being, try and try and think what that would feel like.
Well, I mean, this is the challenge. Oh goodness. I could never understand. I admit that I'm not empathetic 100% of the time, but um, I never could understand why empathy was such a threat to leaders.
Yeah.
And but the
Why is this
reality
so
is,
dangerous to you?
right, why is it so dangerous? Because I don't want, I mean, as an empathetic person, I'm not here to cut you off at the knees. Like, why don't you go on the journey of what this empathy thing is? What is truth? What is like, why not? Like, what do you have to lose? Like, and instead, this fear, all the fear and insecurity and self-protection and the
Yeah.
doubt, which can happen anytime you're in a position that you that somebody else puts you into, that you don't feel like you have the ability to defend on your own merit, or that objectively defend on your own merit. Like, it seems almost inevitable that these types of feelings will arise, at least. But when you don't, and I think a lot of people feel like they're caught in this catch-22. Like, if you don't go down the road of the shadow work, the desert, the undoing, the breaking, all of those things, then there's a price to pay. If you go down that road, there is almost always a valley.
Mhm.
Things get darker. You lose things that you had. And are you willing to go down that road to give that up
Right.
so
Right.
that you can gain something on the other side? So fascinating.
I think that's the dangerous part, right? If I'm willing to go down that road for what I get on the other side, there's still ego there.
Right.
It's about me, about what I get. And it's really uncomfortable, right? In the Western Christian system we were raised in, and nobody really wants to talk about it. But the continual message is look at what Jesus did for us. This is what you get for that. The
Yeah.
entirety of your faith is about, and people wouldn't say this out loud, but if you listen to what they say and what they do, the entirety of your faith is about what you get out of it.
Right.
How is that not ego driven?
Right.
If the most profound decision I can make, and the existential decision I can make, is about me and what I get out of it, is it pure? Is it true? Is it holy? No, it's an alloy.
So, what do you do with the people who make the apologetic argument that if you were only selfish, that Christianity is the path that you would choose? Like, that objectively it's the best thing for you. Like, if you want, if you just borrow, Piper's term of Christian, if you're a Christian hedonist, that embracing the path of suffering for the ultimate joy is the path that you should take, and that is in your own best interest to do that. Like, I know I'm really like I'm out to get you, Kevin. I'm like I want
No,
these
I
internet
love it.
trolls to come after you. Like no,
Yes, I love it.
I'm just
Well,
curious.
the reality is, yeah, like my my life, my faith experience, is it if it's about love, it's about knowing and being known. Knowing and being known by God, knowing and being known by others, knowing and being known by myself. It's about union, not about what I get out of it. So, in my mind, in my conception, in my viewpoint, I'm not living for another day where, for someplace else, where I'm going to go.
Right.
I'm living for, and it wasn't always this way. It's a relatively new way of experiencing it, probably within the last 5 years, certainly within the last 10 to 15, more intensely within the last 5 years. But it really is about relationship, about presence, about union, not about what I get out of it.
Well, there's something about union. I mean, this is fundamental into the life of love, which is seeking the good of the other above yourself.
Right.
And and I think I mean the reason why you have to have God at the core of this experience is because he is the only infallible and trustworthy one in this whole case.
Yeah.
I mean, Kevin, you'll be in a podcast with him and he'll make off the wall comments or make comments that will step on your toes. And so it can't be him, obviously. Um,
Thank God for
because
pointing that out clearly. Yes.
you're welcome. You're welcome. Um, no, but like it can't be another human. Like, and so there is a place. I mean, we need to carefully define what him looking out for us looks like because him looking out for us is protection. He tells us to pray and ask for daily bread, but nowhere in scripture do we see any kind of guarantee of our lives. Like that's not the example that's laid out for us that somehow our lives will
Right.
be spared and things will be wonderful and amazing here on the earth. Like that's not it. But you need some kind of foundation that you can have a demonstration of a fully trustworthy counterpart. And so there is
Well,
this,
if you look at it, like between you and I, we have our subjective realities based on our experiences and our thoughts and our feelings and everything, right? Those are subjective realities. Now, I could sit here and say, Matthias, I'm right. But really, what I'm saying is, I'm right based on my experience.
right,
And you could sit here and say, you're right. But really, what you're saying is, you're right based on your experience. And we could go round and round and round and round and round that tree.
yep,
Look at the argument over predestination. I'm right. Gonna go around that tree. I'm right. Gonna go around that tree. And where is the union? Where is the relationship? Where's the seeing anybody else's point of view? It's just completely egocentric, lost in the mist.
right,
The only way, back to your point of why there needs to be God, is there has to be an objective third party source outside of our experience that I can point to and say, yes, that's it. And what I hear him saying to me is, love is the way. Love God, love others, love yourself. That makes a lot of sense to me because it's not about me, it's about we.
yeah,
And that's the problem, I think, with most what we would call psychological illnesses, but I call them spiritual sicknesses, is they either focused on them, on me, or on the we, them and me, not the collective we.
yeah,
God, them, me. Like Jesus talks about. It's about God, it's about me, and it's about them. There's a we there. And that's the objective reality of the human condition is we are so myopic And we get so self-involved because we're so scared that we create these little kingdoms and then we rule over those kingdoms and we react violently when somebody tries to step into our kingdom.
Right. Well, if just to add to your level of distortions, there's also the the whole kind of me and God thing as well. Like I'll exclude everybody else, but that, whatever you want to call that, the
Right. Yeah. God and I alone.
yep.
Only God can judge me. The only person well, okay, great. But you don't think that's an echo chamber? How
No,
about
that's
how about a third strand to that cord? Somebody else who can look out and go, I'm seeing something here.
hey, you got a little broccoli in your teeth there. You might want to get
Yeah,
it out.
right.
Like,
No, God's gonna tell me I have the broccoli in my teeth, Matthias. I don't need
right.
you to do that. All the while, God's completely unconcerned that you have broccoli in your teeth.
It's like, oh man, he's worried about your bad breath because of the broccoli you ate. Not just kidding. Um,
Right? Without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
But these
What?
labels that we put on each other or we put on ourselves, they just separate us from each other. This person's bad. This person's good. This person's white. This person's black. This person's rich. This person's poor. This person's depressed. This person's happy. It's just a categorization so I can shift the pieces on the chessboard so that I can feel safe.
Right. There's a lot of organizational leadership. Speaking of chess, takes me back to a conversation I had recently around someone who described organizational leadership as a game of chess. Um, and I don't think they particularly meant it in a pejorative or negative way, but there is a sense in which it is a chess game in a lot of cases. There isn't a knowing and being known. There are people who know the rules of the game, who know who needs to be where, and it's done under the pretense that not everybody needs to know everything. And once you get to a certain size, this is how you manage behaviors and people and things like that. But there isn't and maybe for some people, this is sufficient. Like, I
Yeah,
just want to live in my own little corner office and, design flyers in Canva, whatever that might be. Or I just want to be over in my corner and,
yeah,
God forbid, enter numbers and cross check numbers all day, whatever the thing might be. But,
yeah,
um, but, but for people who have a curiosity beyond that, there is no room for that. There is no knowing. There's a master plan somewhere. It remains hidden. There's no correspondence or communication about that master plan. It's all about where the chess pieces lie, and there's no room because there's only room for a few people to understand that. Like you can't in that type of a structure, you can't productively take the time to have everybody wrap their head around what that structure needs to be and then to have the conversations to formulate what that needs to be. Like the efficiency demands that you don't.
right.
Um, and as a side note, personality profiling can be incredibly useful.
Mhm.
It can give you a quick shortcut to helping people find a work where that can be fulfilling and productive. But to your point, it can also be a point of division. And um, also another ramble. I remember working with a mentor one time who was highly empathetic and once asked me if I knew what their personality profile was, and I would have completely mispegged them simply because most of the people that I've used, there have been plenty of type A personalities that have been around who've used the type A label as a label for the ego and
Yeah,
and that's just the way that I am. I'm just I just run over people
Right.
and hurt people because I'm type A.
Yeah. Get out of my way.
Get out of my way. And I just take it because I'm a type B. Like I just,
Right. Yeah.
cool. How's that working out for both of you guys? Sounds like a wonderfully dysfunctional relationship you got going on.
Right. Right. At some point, somebody's going to get tired of getting run over.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like a pleasant experience to me. You can only take that for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, these relationships, whether it's an employee relationship, a marriage relationship, a friendship, whatever the case may be, if one or both enter that arrangement and say it's about what I get out of it, there is no joy there. There will
Mhm.
not be any joy. If both go into it as it's about what both or either or go into it and think it's about what they get out of it. I just want to make them happy. There's no joy there. It functionally can't work. The only way it works is it's about we. And we have to wrestle with what that we looks like. We have to negotiate that. We have to talk about it. We have to communicate it. We have to adjust to make it about the we. It's the whole nonsense of vomit if I hear another man say this, like happy wife, happy life. Because you have made her the idol of she has to be happy. It's all about her. Or the husband who's like, I'm the king of the castle kind of thing. It's about his ego and he has to be happy. There's no we there.
Okay, I want to try this out. I just want to hear your response, but I've heard a variation of that in which somebody was countering that, and their counter to that was happy life, happy wife.
I told you I was going to vomit the next time I heard that.
No, I changed it up. Kevin, I changed it up. I flipped it around. You didn't hear it. You heard something else.
That's
And you
right.
still
That's right.
vomited.
That's right. Anything aside from anything aside from everybody in the system having their thoughts, feelings, and opinions and knowing and being known and walking through it and wrestling through difficult situations. Like apply this to a church. There's no way you can have that in 1,000-person church or 100-person church or a 50-person church, at least statistically, psychologically, sociologically, the greatest number we can have is 15 and still have that cohesive we involved.
Mhm.
In a marriage, I think why the Bible is so critical, I, a lot of systems are critical of plural marriage. And I think if we look at it foundationally, psychologically, you are deluding yourself if you think you can have a we with 5 wives,
Right.
with 5 people. The best we can do psychologically as human beings is have that one-on-one relationship with the we of God involved in it. That's how it's designed. You can't do other than that. And you
Yeah.
can hear people argue psychologically, sociologically, all that kind of stuff of, oh, well, we could have this arrangement, or we could have this arrangement, or we could have an open marriage, we could have da 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 da. Okay. How's that turn out? Is it psychologically healthy? Is it spiritually healthy for every person within the group? Not you, person who's claiming that you need this,
Right.
but what about everybody within the system? What are they experiencing?
Right.
No, it's not. It never will be.
Yeah. If you read some memoirs, if you want to know how everybody experiences this. Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think we
So
stayed pretty close to the label conversation.
we did. So man, this is one of those that there's so much. There's so much.
Yeah, it truly is. As human beings, there is just so much nuance and complexity. And like it's such a powerful thing if we could just dive into that. Tell me about you. That's interesting. Where'd you come from? What do you think? But there's this efficiency and there's this urgency and there's this fear that keeps us from stepping in and engaging with the person in front of us. And it's a tragedy. And I imagine heaven. This is not a theological claim. Do we have to give that caveat anymore? We
Hey, with our rapid spike of millions of listeners a week, Kevin, we have to say it every time.
That's true. That's true.
You know,
But I imagine heaven being every person who's ever existed, billions and billions of people, and getting the chance to meet each one of them and get to
mhm,
know each one of them because there's no time constraint.
right.
What do you think? Where have you been? Tell me your stories. And there's no constraint because I don't have to go somewhere to work and provide and da da da. I can just be present to relationship. Like, God, did you hear that story? Yeah, I already knew it. Well, I was just wondering. That's a cool story.
Well, and
Like,
if you look at the from a now my brain is like the factorial standpoint
hmm
of like if you even limit it to groups of 15. So let's say you start with one-on-one. So everybody has in-depth, extended one-on-one conversations. And then you yeah, start triads and you start
hmm
integrating multiple stories together and
Yeah,
multiple perspectives together. And even if you cap groups at, say, 15, and you look at every unique 15-person combination within this, um,
yeah.
like
The
what a,
permutations there are ridiculous.
yeah,
Ridiculous. Like, talk about a fractal.
yeah,
Like this repeated triad
try it like
happening.
everywhere.
Oh, man.
That'll make your head spin.
That'll make your head spin.
I think we should just leave people with a good math problem at the end. How's that?
Perfect. I love it. Oh, man.
Good. Just reflecting though momentarily, yeah, but labels are such curious things, and so easy to grab hold of them to find a place of belonging because we don't have belonging anywhere else, and grab onto them to create distance because we can't bear closeness with another human being for whatever reason.
I think the fascinating thing is the labels that God gives us and his people, beloved, son, things like this. Those are the only labels he's interested in.
Yeah. What
And
what
then
is
there's
your
the labels that Jesus gives those who are not interested, who are more interested in labels. Snakes, whitewashed tombs.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
All right. Fascinating conversation.
Thanks for the conversation. This was fun.
Well, likewise. And
Yeah,
to all of you guys listening in, thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. And you can find us all the places. You already found us. Just you know where to find us now. Um, and until next time, thanks, Kevin.
until next time, my friend.